of the foundation for our workshop. So in a way, we have to cover the theoretical principles to get behind this. Okay. So today it's well, the heading is really funding a startup, but I go as well a little bit into costing your operations or your business, and we have a look also at pricing itself. Yeah. Okay. So traditionally in our business model, we have multiple possibilities to actually come to ideas of revenue or as well costing of your organization. So if you have an entrepreneurial idea, as already kind of covered in the facturation strategy, you can probably do a lot with your personal resources. Now, the more strategic view, and this is often what you will be asked about in a company or corporate setting, has often to do with the resource strategy. So the traditional categories here are associated with the value chain and relate to human capital, social capital, physical capital, and financial capital, often quantified through pro formas. So particularly in bigger companies, you often just see the pro formas rather than the breakdown as we have it here.
What's pro formas?
What is a pro forma?
It's where you build someone, but you want to build them before any work's done. Like, or like an invoice would be, you'd give them an invoice and pay it. But if you made a pro forma invoice, it'd be like you want this paid before the work's done.
Yeah, so it goes in the right direction. Pro forma is really just a model that you use to kind of get an idea of the stuff that you're measuring. Yeah, so often costing is a typical one, so you're spot on. You ask somebody to do something, and you don't do the accurate costing yet. You give them a pro forma kind of costing in the sense that you have costed it before, and in your past this was roughly the price that it worked out at. Yeah, but in reality, it's not the real thing. Yeah, it's a model basically. Yeah, but pro forma is really just at that level the recognition that you kind of work with a model where you probably have quantified how many hours it takes somebody to do a certain piece of your product, right? So this is like often times versus hours that you pay them versus the actual resources that go into it. Yeah. Okay. Now I break it, of course, down, so we go actually into the detail. So focus of an informal capital compared with that of a venture capital. And again, in the literature, we see a lot finance of venture capital or entrepreneurial capital. So just be aware that most entrepreneurs, and you too, probably have a huge access of the informal side. So if you actually look at it, venture capital is literally you're bidding, you're asking external investors to come forward, and it has often to do with innovation. If you have a certain segment of a rising market, be it technology or communication industry, and those were a few, and you have kind of a certain repertoire, then capital ventures are often quite interested in you. So those are investors that are willing to give you money in return for equity ownership in your idea, in your company actually. Now here you have a few superstars. So statistics from 3 years ago was they handed something out like 32 billion of venture capital invested in something like 12,000 companies only. Now this is a lot of money for a few companies. If you look at the economic core, a lot of them actually use informal capital invested. So this can be anything from your personal savings, to start off your idea, to even kind of social networks. Yeah, you may have somebody that does the logistics for free, or you have a good friend that is in the shipping business, and you have noticed the containers are not as full from Europe to China as they are from China to Europe, and there may be a hint. So, but again, this is already mainly the formal side. And this is an estimate, this is not actually measured really. It's 360 billion or 359 of informal capital invested into something like 33 million of companies, and a lot more actually. So this is a kind of idea to get started. Yeah. So although you hear often as an entrepreneur you need a business plan, nowadays this is actually kind of a questionable strategy. The statistics speak against it. Hence we are talking as well about a business model. Yeah. Now, what is a strategic planning to actually think about financing your ventures or maybe ideas, entrepreneurial endeavors that you have? Now, first stage is seed capital and startup. What is seed capital? What could that be? We'll explain that in a few slides, but have you come across that? Seed?
Is it just like your initial
capital?
Initial finance.
Yeah. It's actually to kind of the seed to grow something, to grow your business. So it's kind of the metaphor from farming, right? So the start off, and often when I come to the statistics where the sources are in a second, you will see personal resources dominate here. Yeah. Then you have angels. Who are angels? Has anybody heard of that before? Angels.
Is that like guarantor, like mum, dad?
No. It could be actually. You have a point. But angels are normally business angels. Yeah, so it's a cluster. It's actually a formalized thing in Europe largely. Yeah, so it's entrepreneurs that have made money and kind of want to give back to uprising entrepreneurs by giving them kind of startup money. Yeah, but I introduce it in a second. Then small business investment companies. Do you know what they make the money with? A lot of them are as well actually venture capital. I shouldn't say venture capitalists, but this goes in the right direction. What does that mean? Do they give you the money? No.
When you have to convince them that your business is worth investing in.
Yeah. So they're actually a little bit more tricky. They're working like your guarantee. So they don't actually give you the money. They ask you to go to your bank, and they give you a guarantee. So if you, let's not be too pessimistic about it, if your idea doesn't work out in the full theorem, then in many countries they give up to 75% of the initial investment back to the bank. So this reduces basically the risks, and often then banks are willing to give you a loan. Yeah? But this is a loan basically, yeah? Or a security for a loan. Now this is normally the first stage. This is the money that you can get arguably quite easy, or your first kind of stage. Second stage, here you may think about expansion financing largely. This is where it becomes interesting when it gets a little bit bigger. Here you have kind of public equity. Well, we have a look at that, so I will stop asking those questions. State-sponsored venture capital companies, yeah, so actually Google used this in America, yeah, so the initial idea that they had didn't go very far. They were actually quite desperate in the end, they got government funding. Then venture capital, this is kind of the famous thing, so this is professional investment. Then strategic alliances, sometimes even other players become very interested into you. So think of WhatsApp with Facebook, but again, this was already expansion oriented basically. And then again, the small business investment companies are still a player as well for expansion financing. And third stage, this is kind of acquisitions and buyout. Here you often have public equity and venture capital companies again. But we will have a look at this and apply it a little bit more. Now this is largely the literature as you will find it in the book. But of course we have to make a little bit more sense for our setting here. So the financial strategic framework that is kind of set for our business model is really opportunity oriented, right? So you are evaluating those tools, which one is suitable for you. Yeah? Don't just go with it because it's recommended in the literature. This is kind of as well for you to kind of orient yourself. Now, with the opportunity, you can kind of start if you want as a financial strategy. This is often not how we started there. We have started with the idea. So we have probably started here with the value creation. Yeah, but again, let's have a look first at the financial strategy. So degrees of strategic freedom, time to OOC. What is that? of
Control.
out of control is very good. I go with that. Yeah. So this is basically time to closure. Basically, actually, this is. Now you have hooked me with the closure. Commerce. That's the one. Yeah. Out of commerce, time to close. So those are potential considerations that you do financially. So this means you run basically out of money. Yeah, cash flow, for example. Then future alternatives versus risk and reward. So this is a very simple strategizing, if you want, and we have a look at how we can actually do this. And then as well personal concerns, maybe. Yeah, so maybe as an entrepreneur, you're quite happy at the beginning to wait on your customers to pay over 3 months period, but maybe this is not so desirable after a while anymore if the quantities get bigger, and there are certain implications with again costing, resource access, and so forth. Now this is kind of the financial side. Then you have the sources and deal structures. So again, here it depends maybe if you take debt, equity. Equity means you have given part of your company and decision-making power away maybe. And there are other forms that I kind of discussed. And don't worry, we will cover that all. And then financial requirements, maybe driven by burn rate. And again, we have a look at that, what that actually means. Operating needs, working capital, and asset requirements and sales. And last but not least, we have kind of the business strategy. Here you have marketing, operations, finance, and value creation itself. Well, actually, that we have already on our business model canvas, right? So in a way, you will see it relates directly. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at the critical financial variables. So again, this is kind of tailored towards startups. Yeah. So if you're in larger companies, you may want to add a few more factors. But factors that affect the availability of various types of financing include accomplishments and performance to date. So if we are a new startup, do we have a history in this? Or what do you think? If we start now our entrepreneurial activity, does anybody have a history financially in a startup? Okay, so you had a startup before.
Yeah.
So the quick question, was this very positive or was it negative oriented? What would you say?
It was positive. It was a small, like in the UK we set up limited companies basically if you wanted to do trade. So I was part of the team that started the limited company with 5 members, and we started trading in January. And after a year we turned over £1 million between 5 of us. But I was just like, I was accounts manager, so I pretty much looked after the financials, credit control, customers, things like that.
But in a way you have a positive credit rating. Now this is amazing for our startups here. Yeah?
It depends. Our situation was we had enough startup capital to use invoice financing as a way to keep our cash flow high, which might not be, because our market was we sold goods with a decent margin at high prices, so we might sell something for £15,000 with a 20% margin on, or we might sell something for £60,000 with a 20% margin on, and that's a viable strategy for that sort of figures. But like for a different business, that's a different product, it wouldn't work.
Yes, it's very good. But on a good note, we have actually already accomplishments and performance. Yeah. So as long as you are in our entrepreneurial endeavor, where we have some track record, yeah, many startups start actually with 0. Do you remember how did the banks initially react on your proposal?
Oh, it's at the moment the way the banks are, it's like very guarded and protected because they've been stung in the past by other companies. So the banks know not to make the same mistakes again with newer companies. So it's very difficult dealing with the bank all the time, but it's something that you overcome because you have to learn how to manage them and they manage you. You normally have like a relationship manager with the bank, but you have to keep them involved as much as you want them or need them to be, but keep them at an arm's distance because you don't want them interfering.
Yeah. So there's a danger, and you described here already the relationship. So maybe even your bank, particularly depending on how much money you want to loan, if you want a loan, can actually be as well quite interested in the market, particularly if they are focused on this segment of the market. Yeah. So, but it's quite an interesting observation. Thank you for that. Now, when we actually come to the factors that affect the availability of the financing, it's as well investors' perceived risk, and as you actually indicated, yeah. If you're in a segment where banks have loaned before and the business just went bust, yeah, this is particularly fearful then for the banks. They will try to hook you probably on performance, on property assets, maybe even other liabilities, yeah. There is as well a factor about the industry and technology. So we have some industries that even if you have a very low profit margin, yeah, so you had actually quite a decent profit margin, with 20%, but in the high product end, even if you have a small profit margin, they are quite happy to give you a loan, because it's actually quite a secure asset-driven market. Yeah, so think here of houses, think here of fancy goods like a boat or even fancy cars. You will actually receive relatively easy a loan. Yeah. Now then we have the venture upside potential and anticipated exit timing. So they look at it as well, and when can they actually cash in? Yeah. So you may have money available for a set time, but if they have certain contractual arrangements, they may ask you to pay earlier back. But again, this depends on how you're setting up the contract. Yeah. Now, venture anticipated growth rate is as well an indicator. It turns out that banks, if you have insane great margins as anticipated, then this seems to actually attract investors. Then as well, venture age and stage of development has a huge influence. So have you already had a prototype? Are you trying now to scale it and you have already a market available? Yeah? So a little bit what you indicated. Yeah. So your product seemed to return a guaranteed profit margin. Yeah, this is actually very much liked by banks or investors in general. Then you have the investors' required rate of return, of internal rate of return. So internal rate of return is often as well factored against additional requirements. So this can actually even be like time ratios against investments, but we have examples of that. Yeah, but normally, as a normal loan, you go with the rate of return. This is normally sufficient. Amount of capital required and prior evaluations of the venture, and founder's goal regarding growth, control, liquidity, and harvesting. I like that they always use a farming terminology here. You have as well a relative bargaining position, of course, yeah, and investors require terms and convenants. Yeah, it's really about conventions that they may feel important. So this was exactly relating to maybe having had a certain industry sector, having startups where you have a lot of failures. This is for them potentially burn capital. Yeah. Now, yeah, this is kind of a very old venture. I should have really. So in a nutshell, here you have kind of the entrepreneurial side. So least likely versus most likely, and then you have here kind of the high growth versus seed startup to maturity, and then you have here administrative burden and here the change and uncertainty associated with it. Again, this is an old risk model, but the interesting side to this is it's still dominant in a lot of banks' risk models. So they're still evaluated that way. So here you kind of have entrepreneurial that are funded by lifestyle, yeah, mom and pop ventures. What is that? Mom and pop ventures?
Like mum and daddy.
Yeah.
So
and
so like you'd be like, oh mom and dad, can I have 20k to put towards to this my business? And they'd be like, yeah, but this.
Yeah, so you're spot on. Yeah. So here you have literally no administrative burden, and it's often applicable at the beginning. once you come actually to higher potential growth-minded ventures, and it becomes potentially quite challenging for parents and family and friends to invest unless you have actually a generative model that allows that. Yeah, there is as well another notion here. So if you are quite mature already, and you're kind of looking at if you want less change and uncertainty, this is normally quite common to standardize, which comes together with they call it bureaucratic dinosaurs, and you miss, of course, out on the most entrepreneurial endeavors. So you're probably challenging an existing industry and its remit rather than reinventing. Yeah, but again, this is an old model, but still quite significant for risks. More art evoque is really, if you look at central issues of finance, more in what we have done: value creation, slicing the value pie, and covering risk. So this is often a starting point of how to think about this. So value creation can be shareholders, customers, employees. Your shareholders may be yourself. Yeah, if you are the whole owner of the company, and you may have a trustee or somebody like that, those would be, of course, the respective people. Here we have then slicing the pie. So this is allocating risk and returns. So basically you said that. You are writing that in your business model. There are some quite interesting ones around. When we have a look actually in the workshop at some that follow our canvas, when we look at the costing and revenue, there are certainly some smart ways of doing this. And very important as well is the cash risk time, which I will actually explain when we come to the pricing. And then covering the risk itself. So this can be debt, take control, basically try to avoid it or plan for it so that you have suitable financial mechanisms in place. And equity is another one. Stage commitments, so equity can be in exchange for somebody else to carry your risk. But again, keep in mind here you are bringing more people on board. Yeah. Now, this is a thumb rule. This is actually so I myself, just thinking back of my own past, can give you a counterexample. But as a general thumb rule, there's 3 core principles of entrepreneurial finance. So more cash is preferred to less cash. Cash sooner is preferred to cash later. Yeah, and less risky cash is preferred to more risky cash. And this goes as well with giving ownership away or kind of any form of having cash like kind of speculative given to you, and if somebody has a better proposition, the cash moves to another organization. Yeah, so there are wonderful carousels like that. So this is just an orientation point. Now, to actually look at how we can reduce this, so entrepreneurs, if you look at self-financing, so here you often have notions of savings. So this may be your own savings. Interestingly as well, credit cards is a big one. Mortgages can be as well used. So this is you notice, this is a private input. Stock market accounts maybe. Customer financing. Is something else coming to mind? What else could we use as individuals? Private side to start off our company. So if you can do as well assets. This can be very heartbreaking. If you have saved all your college money for a nice car or something like this. So if you have a nice car, you can put it this way in as an asset register. Keep in mind, it's not fully yours anymore. Yeah, so so there are possibilities to do that. But again, this goes kind of already in a stock market account if you want. Mortgages is as well quite a tough one. Yeah, so if you have a mortgage on a house or flat and you remortgage, you basically carry the more credit, right? Yeah.
I have a question. So, what I don't understand. So, if you were to set up a limited company, why there's so much emphasis on like making personal guarantees with the bank, because I thought the whole point of setting up a limited company was that if all the capital you put in, you can only lose what you put into the company. But then when you have a bank making you make personal guarantees, it just defeats the whole purpose of it.
Yeah, we come actually to that. Yeah, so there's there's actually a proper term for this. Actually, in a second. So this is actually the old American startup model. So they had exactly a thought. Wait a minute, it's a limited company, so this is so I'm protected, limited, and don't get like basically prosecuted afterwards for all the money or stuff that I have, right? So this is exactly the whole idea between a limited company. Yeah, but just be aware, depending on your industry. So, for example, even if we had a startup and we would work with PepsiCo, with entrepreneurs, we would always phone the bank up and ask against how much are they actually insured, what are their liabilities. So we would literally do every time that test before we would actually give them a contract. So this is why sometimes it makes sense. So this depends on the industry and as well on your setting. Yeah. So particularly if you have no pre-existing liabilities and you have a platform or something for trading, then it doesn't make sense to actually have a large credit. Yeah, then you probably try to self-finance it. Yeah. But again, you can. So once you have a name, you can as well use your company to take a loan or to take a mortgage out. Yeah. So actually, thinking about it, I have two friends that have set up a large center, and they have bought on the company credit a large estate and developed that at the moment. So, and this runs on a mortgage that runs against the company, not against them individually. Yeah. Okay, but still, self-finance. Yeah, this is one side where it may come, and you have to be careful. There are other alternatives. This is statistically speaking, those are the dominant formats. Yeah, so this comes from the literature. This is not a complete sourcing. You will see that actually when we work in the workshops through the cases. Yeah. Then bootstrapping. This is literally what you're saying. Yeah. Why do I want to put my neck into the sling if I have like something like 20 ventures, yeah, where I want to see which one is the best? Then, doing more with less is the emphasis here, and the term how it has been branded as bootstrapping, because has anybody followed blue chip companies? What is a blue chip company?
Is that just any smart tech company that was from Silicon Valley?
Yeah. This was literally the movement. They had tech ideas, tech startups. We had this here as well in the UK, and they had a limited liability and were looking for, basically investment. So you could kind of do this via crowdfunding sites or via stock markets, the blue chip stock market, and they would do basically what the web pages did. They just assessed what would be the projected return on the investment. How long are the running times, and then they would cash it in, and they would do it large scale on many, so that they have something like 100 companies, and if one would pay off, there were often profits like 200% return, because they had like breakthrough models. But in reality, not many did break through, so you really needed something like 200 companies to make a share in this. Yeah. So basically they use this a lot. So technique for getting by on a few resources as possible and using other people's resources whenever feasible. So bootstrapping tips: hire as few employees as possible. Yeah, so bring only people in on a need to work on it basis. Actually, lease or share everything. So use other people's money. So go for external investment. It shows you're basically outsourcing as well the risk, but at the same time it has its reputation. So if you look actually at the book and they talk about this too, there are a lot of issues with this too. Yeah, you need to build the relationships first. Yeah. But this was literally limited liability. Yeah, you upset a lot of people if your venture falls through, but you are only legally limited liable. Yeah. Financing with equity. This is a little bit what I mentioned already. So normally famous as business angels or investor angels. So this can be equity from friends and family. So, but this shows you already it's a little bit different to the mom and pop investment, because here they actually want a share. Yeah, they say like, okay, you can have this money, and you can work with this, but we want an equal share. And I've seen that actually, particular when I was working in R&D. This is a popular model and seems to destroy a lot of family if it doesn't go well. But aside of that, it means that you have as well additional people making actually decisions when to cash out. Yeah, so you may have grand plans, but they have made now over 50% return on their investment, and they're like, thank you, I'm out. And this may be just the level where you can't buy them out. Yeah, this can be quite painful. Then you may come to a close with your business, or you try to sell it, yeah, just based on the financial need. Yeah, so this anyway. But here, the most expensive long-term funding. Well, I've already hinted towards why, but it means often as well that you have actually other partners on board. The entrepreneur is more likely to lose control of the business depending on how much equity you have given away. Yeah, so this has certain dynamics with it. But why is it friends and family? You would think differently, right? They are your friends, they are your family. Why would that be such a risky thing? By the way, this is not referring to your family per se. This is statistically speaking large scale. Yeah, if we see something like this, it seems to go wrong a lot.
So if you're the entrepreneur, say, and it's your idea, you've done everything for it, you put all the initial work on, and you get two partners. Mm-hmm. Because say you're writing a code for something, and you get someone who's got server company, and then you've got someone who's had experience in technology before. Then if you have two equal partners, you only have 33% in the business. Yeah. And then hypothetically, one of the other two partners could actually own the other company as well. So they would have majority shareholding of the company, and that would happen very fast. So you would literally be the person who did everything, who knew everything. We've got two partners who now can be bought out of the business because they own 33% of it. Yeah. Yeah, spot on. You have already, this was a better description than what I had, but you're absolutely spot on. Yeah? So it's very easy to lose control, particularly if you go in with friends and family. It seems that a lot of entrepreneurs are quite happy to give equal share away, and that can then multiply. Yeah? So it's a dilemma that depending on how many people there are, you may lose majority. Yeah? Now again, this is quite risk-oriented, yeah, but be aware that there's empiri behind this. Then there's the private investors, angels, or business angels, really. So angels are informal risk capital sources. Funding is traditionally between 10 to 500,000. Now this is statistically speaking, yeah, so there's of course exceptions beyond that. Trend to invest in a short distance from home, so it's often local business angels. Yeah. So we have as well a network here in the Northeast, and they are hosting regular events for entrepreneurs to pitch their ideas. Yeah. So actually we as university host them as well a lot. Angels take an active role often in the company. They often like to work as mentors as well. So if they are relevant to your idea, if you can see like, okay, they're in my industry sector, those connections are often door openers, particularly in terms of channels, if you think of our business canvas. Yeah, but treated with care. I have some guidelines later from literature. Actually, if you believe the empiri, there are some questionable categories that you should look at. But there is as well a word of warning. So they can be as well maybe very interested in having influence on a certain market. So there may be other intents within the investment. Angel investors, who are the angel investors? So most are self-made entrepreneurs, often millionaires. So again, I have to apologize here, this comes from the literature, this is not my categories. Many are in their 40s and 50s, which is again slightly questionable. Yeah, but most are well educated. This is what I meant by the categories. But 95% have university degrees, and 51% have graduate degrees. 44% are in the technical field, and 30% are in business or economics. 96% are men.
So you can see this is what I meant by questionable indicators, but this is what I got from the book. So what can I say? By the way, this is 2012, so this is not art book. It may have shifted, but it's still the best that I could find in that regard. Then we have as well informal investors. So what type of ventures lends themselves to the use of informal investors? Ventures with capital requirements of between 50,000 to 500,000. So ventures with sales potential of between 2 million to 20 million within 5 to 10 years. So this is most likely that you will attract something like that. Small established privately held ventures with sales and profit growth of 10 to 20% per year. So if you can project something like that, or you can show that the market data indicates this, or you have customers that already indicate that they want to grow that gradually. So think here of companies like Aldi or Lidl. This is a typical business model. They say like, okay, first year we take this, but we will want to roll it out over our whole supply chain. This is normally at a rate where you grow quite quickly. So once you kind of jump the initial hurdle, then there's normally an enormous production surplus required. Now, financing with equity, this is continued. So this is kind of more the corporate side. Here you have strategic alliances. So this is formal and informal partnerships with other businesses. This is actually what we did at PepsiCo a lot. So if we had a patent, an idea that we would perceive too risky to run ourselves, then we often had a champion that would actually start from us with capital, with equity probably of more than 50%, a new venture with other companies or maybe the entrepreneurs themselves. And then they would run that, and if it seemed feasible, we would often acquire them back in, depending on how you wanted to run the risk model. So here strategic, it wasn't always strategic alliances, as well joint ventures. So there's a whole raft of collaborative ventures that you can run that way. Then again, the small business investment companies, SBIC, privately managed venture capital firms licensed by the Small Business Administration. We have this in the UK too. So Small Business Administration is, if I'm not mistaken, America, right? Here's the Small Business Federation. Is that correct? Pretty sure that it's Small Business Federation. So alternatively as well, grants and venture capital institutes and networks. But we didn't have, okay, let's have a look. Now this makes sense. Okay, so this was, so this is again continued. So we have as well private placement. So this is private investment obtained by selling securities in a private corporation or partnership. So this is as well an element that you can do. Well, what is a security? This is already quite advanced, right? So can we as an individual take out a security? Okay, so security you can take out, for example, against promised payments. So if it's institutionalized. So in the UK, if you work with a little bit advanced finance, then if you have a product where the client withholds guarantee money, so this is, for example, commercial companies building houses. This is common for companies that buy the planes from Boeing or Airbus, for example. They withhold something like 10% of the price as a guarantee, which they pay after 5 years with no issues. And this is a guarantee normally that you can take out as a security from the bank again. You lose roughly something like 7%, but it's worthwhile. You have the cash straight away available, and Airbus, for example, makes more out of money than 7% within 3 years or 6 years. So they do it on a regular basis. In construction, we do this normally as well. We have got running times of 10 to 15 years, so you have cash straight away available. And in construction, it can be up to 25% if you build a factory. So this is very profitable, and the banks are quite happy to sit on it because, particularly with certain companies, they know that they nearly have over 90% guarantee fulfilled. Yeah, or they don't have to default. Is basically the point. Yeah. But again, this is already advanced finance, so we won't go too much into this. But it can be interesting for private cooperation or partnerships. So again, if you look at something like a joint venture or doing work that is considered not core to the business, then this is quite interesting. Yeah. Then you have as well national economics may provide rules for recapitalization based on securities, life insurance. I think I'm not sure about the UK with that, but I know that Switzerland is renowned for this. So if you take a life insurance out of something like 20 million, this is actually not so much what you're paying in, but once you have it, after 1 year, you can actually use it as a guarantee, the 20 million. So this means that you can very quickly generate a large amount of money, but this depends here on the national economy. Yeah? So a lot of companies at their international position play those games, of course. There are as well advantages with it. So fewer prior assets or credit references are needed, and here no SEC filing needed for entrepreneurs. So this is in the US. This is actually where you have to establish that you have been credible for a certain time. So you need to use your credit cards to actually have a profile. Yeah, and often this is quite difficult for companies, particularly in the UK. It's very difficult to get actually initially a credit set up for your company. Now, financing with debt is kind of commercial bank. Here, basis of loans. So you have here, it's basically all forms of loans. It's important maybe to recognize so that it's not necessarily always just banks. So this can be as well credit bases or based on conditions. We mentioned that already. So I don't want to go. So this is more like an overview. So if you're interested in that, you can read up on that. Yeah. Small business administration loans, or here in the UK, the Federation. The business model from them works quite easy, or very straightforward. First of all, you have to become a member of the Small Business Federation here in the UK. And once you're a member, the fee is actually not very high. You pay something like £50 initially to become a member, but it makes you, you can then apply actually for these guarantees. And it works the following: the entrepreneurs applies for up to £2 million. Actually, I think it's even more. I think it's higher now. From his personal bank. Yeah. So again, it's a question if you if you have a business account with Lloyds, for example, then you apply there, and then the business administration or federation, in our case here, guarantees that it will repay up to 75% of the loan to the commercial lender should the business kind of default. Yeah. So it's a be aware, you have to kind of comply as well to the Small Business Federation's kind of template. So actually our business model that we are using, depending on what you're doing with it, you may not comply because they are still after a traditional business plan. Yeah. Then we have as well microloans. They do that too for companies to use non-profit community development corporations rather than banks. They interlink you as well to that. Yeah? But this is not just a small business federation here in the UK. This is as well other institutions that have actually established themselves in that. Is anybody familiar with that? Microloans? Do we have that here in the Northeast? We have a few. So if you're IT startup or ICT startup, we have in the Usborn area. There are few financial brokers actually for that, and this is very easy money to get. Yeah, but it's small amounts, and it's often short-term oriented. Yeah, so you have to repay it, otherwise you get horrendous rates. So that is basically where the money comes from for them as well. But if you get it back in the short term, within 3 months, for example, then it's actually reasonable loan. So they guarantee that just by the pure quantity of how many they give out, and the interest is at a 4 to 8% which is not too bad actually. Yeah. But this is the only one where I actually know this happens in the region here. Yeah. Further, we have as well commercial finance companies. Actually, this was an example of such. Keep in mind they are less regulated than banks. They often have as well high finance charges. Yeah. I shouldn't really say that, but if you pay more than 12%, then you shouldn't take the loan. It's a very bad idea. This is because interest-wise, this means that they are basically. So the normal interest on a credit should be something like 3% to 5%. This is a lot. If it's higher, then you're basically you're basically undercutting like the national growth models. So this is not a healthy credit. There comes as well a factoring element into it. So receivable financing, in which the factor takes ownership of a receivable at a discount and then collects against it. So what does that mean? So this is the old idea. Yeah, be careful with that. So factoring can be that you actually take a credit and you actually try to compete at certain times to kind of get a better rating and buy yourself out with a new credit. It's a little bit like what I think it's a national sport in the UK with mortgages. So you take out a mortgage for a limited time, and then after a few years you try to get a better mortgage deal. Is that correct? Is anybody aware of that? No?
I mean, people do a similar thing with credit cards, so they'll take out a low interest credit card, have that for 2 years, and then when the credit goes up, they just change it over. So like a similar thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, fair point. Yeah, the balance transfer on credit cards. Yeah. So you may have noticed as well that your bank has pesting you with like 0% for 18 months or 3 years or something like that. This is normally to kind of incentivize that you kind of start using the credit. Yeah, you have been not so good in maximizing your credit card, which is probably good. But anyway, yeah, okay. Now presenting information to possible investors. It's literally a question of our little beautiful template. So what is the market opportunity? What is compelling? So where do you create the value, or what is your creative edge? And how does the business make money? And why is it the right team at the right time? Why do you have the right resources? And what does an investor exit the investment? How does an investor exit the investment? So again, be aware that if they are after that in particular, then you have probably like a investor that calculates very carefully. Yeah, and this can be as well a good investor if you create the value, but that can be as well the backstabbing if something doesn't go according to plan. Yeah, so just be aware with it. There's as well the 4 anchors. What is that? 4 anchors? Does anybody know? I take guesses. What does it stand for?
Basic fundamental foundations.
Yeah, sorry?
Basic fundamental foundations. I mean, the starting initial phases.
Yeah, the 4 anchors has something to do with the market distribution, but the idea of the 4 anchors is basically what's cashable in your business. Yeah, and normally it's really an analogy. It's so what can they actually cash in as an asset and regain their money that they invested. Yeah, and so they are often after equity and as well kind of ownership of parts. So if you have like equipment based or technology based things, then they often have an intent to get as well on the if you have a patent or something to get on it, which is quite interesting. Yeah. But again, have a look. There's a whole section on 4 anchors actually that specifies a little bit where this is coming from, and it's a safety hooks if you want, yeah, for them to get out. Now, what should you be looking for in investors? And again, this is questionable. I'm saying they're questionable. Yeah? This is actually done by the Chambers of Commerce, and it's a really large study. So there's probably some credibility. I'm just not sure that they were looking for the right criteria throughout. So I question their age and university degree categories. But seek investors if you're an entrepreneur that are considering new financing proposals and can provide the required level of capital, are interested in companies at the particular stage of growth. So actually I come to that in a second. When we look at market growth models, there's a simplified model. I will try to break that a little bit down. So investors normally have certain strengths and support mechanisms if you're at a certain stage. If you're at a mature growth model and you're kind of dominating the market, there are not a lot of investors that have the right resources to maybe bring you further than you are already yourself. So you may want to trust in yourselves and push on. But we come to that in a second. Understand and have a preference for investment in a particular industry or as well expertise and channel access basically. Can provide good business advice, moral support, and has contacts in the business or financial community, and are reputable, fair, and hopefully ethical with whom the entrepreneur gets along. So this is where the personal relationship that is actually significant, particularly in entrepreneurial endeavors. And have a successful track records of 10 years or more advising and building smaller companies. Again, be careful, some industry segments that you may want to go into, particularly with tech startups and as well high-tech companies, this clustering exists already for a long time, but a lot of the formats that we have nowadays are new. So the 10 years is maybe utopic. So you can be happy if they have 3 years of good track record. And respectively, the markets may not be as grown as what you may look for. Now there was as well an avoiding point, so what to avoid. So attitude, be wary of getting through to a general partner in the investment firm is an ordeal. So basically you have to kind of sit on the right level, or otherwise it doesn't work. Be worried if the investor thinks he or she can run the business better than the lead entrepreneur or the management team. This comes a little bit back what you mentioned as well with the family potentially involved or dear friends. If you have a group, they may consider like, oh, why are we doing this way? And you may have thought about this for a long time, and decisions can be then overthrown quite quickly. Overcommitment is as well a bad sign. So be wary of lead investors who indicate there will be active directors, but who also sit on the boards of 6 to 8 other startup and early stage companies, or in the midst of raising money for a new fund. So this is as well quite worrisome. But why is it so bad if they raise a new fund? Is that not great if your company is part of a new fund? Why would bankers put your maybe startup into a fund? What are they doing with that? What do you think?
They're preparing for one of them to go wrong, aren't they?
The profit.
Yeah. They put a portfolio, they put it up for sale, right? So the money that they're investing in you, they basically offer as a probably share package to shareholders. Yeah. If it's venture capital, they may ask investors to go in, so they kind of packages as a portfolio with durations on return. So you may have a promise of 3 years. This will be as well the promise for the money to the investors. Yeah. So this can be quite brutal because they may sell it as well to other investors, but then say like, hey, let's have a look at the individual companies and take it apart again. Yeah, so that can create all kind of dynamics. Other ones, so again here questionable criteria in my mind, but so inexperience is one. Be wary of dealing with venture capitalists who are under 30. I don't know where they get that from, so I bet that. So, and then another bad sign apparently is an MBA. So, that's so again, treat this with care. This is statistically speaking, yeah. This is not if they have an MBA, they are bad per se. Yeah? But another indice was only worked on Wall Street as a consultant. So you may see in these statistics the financial crisis reflected. Yeah, be aware of this. So this is 2012 statistics. Yeah. And no operating hands-on experience in new or growing companies. So this is maybe a good one. A predominantly financial focus. Now, statistically, those were significant. I don't have the numbers in mind. If you want, this is coming directly from the book. Yeah? So if you want to have a look, they're presented, of course, with the significance. Yeah? Okay, this has slipped. Okay, so this should have actually been before. So the other warning signs as well: unfavorable reputation. So be wary of funds that have a reputation of early and frequent replacement of the founders. So again, if they buy majority shares, again the old game. Be wary of those where more than one fourth or the portfolio companies are in trouble or failing to meet projections in their business plans, and predatory pricing. So as well, you can use, of course, companies as well to attack a market, so to price it down. Be wary of investors who unduly exploit conditions during adverse capital markets by forcing large share price decreases in new firms and punishing terms on prior investors. So again, this is a question of how you're calculating profits, but we come to that in a second. Now, minimizing surprises, you can do so by by considering those tips. Raise money when you do not need it, so that you have it ready when you need it. Learn as much about the process and how to manage it as you can. Know your relative bargaining position, so check out the market. Kind of talk to your clients as well, what they are happy to purchase. So we have a look in the workshop as well at techniques. In the past you had to do this formally. Nowadays we have so many great tools that are for free. So you can just put a link up and see if people try to purchase your product just based on the description. And then once you have a certain amount of requests, you can actually kind of offer the product for sale. You can then write like, now it has become available for purchase. So this is quite common actually. If all you get is money, you are not getting much. So the point is as well, if you are working with investors that are really interested in your idea, then they should bring as well maybe channel power to the game. So remember our business canvas. There are a lot of additional factors how the investors or maybe partners can actually benefit your entrepreneurial endeavors. Assume the deal will never close. Always have a backup source of capital. So don't bet everything on one horse. It's the old chestnut, right? Don't put all your eggs in the same basket or something like that, right? And then the legal and other experts can blow it. Be aware of this. So actually I've come across it a lot. Where the legal team kind of has their own agenda, and rather than negotiating really for the clients that they have, they actually try to have a standard deal that they could use as a precedence. So this can be very bad. So read the details yourself. So you don't. I mean, there's a legal side to it, but contracts can be as well authored by you. And if you have particular criteria, there's no reason why this cannot be included. It has to have like a certain logic and liability, but that's about it. Okay, do you want to have a 5-minute break before we shoot on? So now we come kind of to costing, pricing, and a little bit more meats on stuff. So you can see this is kind of more the startup finance runs through. And now we need some pricing and costing, and then on Thursday we can actually play a little bit around with cases and have a look what works. 5 minutes or 10? 10. Okay, 10. Okay.
Yo.
Are you running to the back? You throw it together. Do you have coffee? Yes. Dave, where's on? Yeah, he did. Where's he gone? He went on date. Oh, yeah.